now it's time for our panel discussion number 3. And here we are going to talk about developments for eco-friendly production in textile. And to moderate this panel discussion, I would like to call Mr. Dr. Ayyazuddin, CEO, Pakistan Circular Fashion Council. And the panelists are Professor Dr. Tanveer Hussain, Rector, National Textile University, Faisalabad. Mr. Tobias Schurr, Managing Director, RotaSpray, GmbH and Director, Weitmann and Konrad, Germany. Mr. Axel Lukasch, Global Director, Technical Resource, Huntsman Textile Effects, USA. Mr. Rizwan Afzal Chaudhry, Commercial Head, Polyester Business, ICI, Pakistan Limited. Ms. Faiza Jamil, Program Director, Pakistan Environment Trust.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Climate change. The nation is in grief because of the climate change. We have seen flooding, and that's a phenomenon globally been predicted earlier. And the textile sector is only 11% to the carbon footprint of the total big pie. And there's a lot to be done. I welcome our panelists today. And I think to start with, the important thing is the circularity we have in the textile sector to be focused on. So I will request Dr. Tanveer Hussain to speak about circularity, how he sees textile industry to be more circular in the coming future. Dr. Tanveer Hussain.
Thank you very much. Well, circularity is a very wide concept. It's a part of the concept of sustainability. As you all know, circularity is just a part of the sustainable development goals. So, as we all know that there are 17 sustainable development goals and 169 targets. And this circularity comes in the goal number 12. And when we talk about circularity, we usually talk more about the circularity of materials. But it's not just about the circularity of materials, but it's about all of the inputs which go into textile production. It also includes water, it also includes energy, it also includes chemicals. But the emphasis obviously is on the circularity of material. As we saw in the previous presentation, that recycling is being done, and the cycling of PET is one example. And Mr. Rizwan mentioned that now the focus is moving towards textile to textile recycling or fiber to fiber recycling, because the quantity of textile waste annually is worth around $400 billion waste. And this amount is sufficient to meet the sustainable development goals of 50 of the poorest nations. So the main focus is about circularity of the textile waste, specifically post-consumer waste. And there are different options for this circular concept. For example, one is just to reuse the same fabric or same textile by some other user. Another possibility is reuse after getting it repaired. Third possibility is reuse after getting it reconditioned to a lower functionality level. Another possibility is to reuse it after refurbishing with improvement in some functionality. Another possibility is to completely recycle it and use it to make the product of similar value. Another possibility is to upcycle it, to produce a product with a higher value than the initial value. Another possibility is to recycle it with downcycling. But the challenges, I think, are we need to build an ecosystem of recycling. And the biggest challenge is that we don't have, at the moment, collectors of textile waste. There are different models of collection. So recycling involves different steps. The first step is to collect the waste. We don't have a systematic approach to collecting waste, textile waste especially. Then is the sorting step. Then is the pre-processing step. And then comes the recycling. And in recycling, there are two possibilities: mechanical recycling and chemical recycling. And some people are also talking about biological recycling. So we need to build an ecosystem. But the future is recycling, but we need to go about it systematically and holistically, not only focusing on the material circularity, but also energy, chemicals, and water, etc. Thank you very much.
I think you are on the spot because Bill Gates, in his book, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster, he again says that the way we have research to scale down the petrochemical derivatives, the petroleum products are cheaper than our soft drinks. And the amount of investment in the industry came through the research from the PhDs we have cultivated through for the petrochemical products. The similar amount of interest, similar amount of industry investment is required to raise the education level, to raise the research level, to get more ideas about the circularity. I will ask Mr. Axel from Huntsman, what products you are offering for the textile industry, which are more sustainable and towards the conservation of water, because you know it's chemical again going into the water, and being the textile exporter, we see that that's the major cause of pollution in the waters.
We have several ideas and products in the market right now already, and we are working on further ones. Huntsman has developed over the last 5 to 10 years around 100 products to be on the sustainable platform, and we are working and continue on this one. And we have here, as one of the first ones, come up with a new reactive dye range for cotton, where we could save up to 50% of water, energy, and with that also later on CO2 footprint is improved. We have new chemicals to show a shorter dyeing process for polyester dyes, for polyester fibers, and we also have a new water repellent product which is based on around 60% of renewable chemicals.
That's fantastic, and we got another participant on the Zoom meeting, Mr. Tobias. Sure. How are you, Mr. Tobias?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to greet the audience, which I cannot directly see. So sorry for that I could not attend in person. And thanks for joining this very well organized and very informative conference. I guess all understood that a change is needed, not only, but also in textile industry. And in addition to recycling, I guess to use in general less and creating less waste are also some important points. So I'm fine. Thank you very much.
I will request Faiza Jamil to speak about the project they have launched, Net Zero Pakistan, which is a very important task. And I think in our region, Asia Pacific, no one has recently worked on that, because the smaller the company is, the easier to make it net zero. So please tell us about the project.
Now, Net Zero Pakistan is the first coalition, second in the global south, that aims to transition the entire private sector towards net zero. Net Zero Pakistan basically brings together stakeholders from different private sector, public sector, global organizations, financial experts, and they are basically on one platform to help transit the country towards net zero. We were launched last year, and we are sector agnostic, which means we work beyond textiles. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that Pakistan's textile sector is really up and kind of there to understand what this concept is and how important it is. So in a span of 1 year, we were able to sign up 23 large manufacturing companies from Pakistan, textile manufacturing companies from Pakistan to net zero. This is by no means a small achievement because committing to net zero is something that even bigger companies with a lot of resources and knowledge are very shy of doing because it's not an easy target to achieve.
I will request Mr. Rizwan, because we were talking about the scalability of the products. So if you can give us an example or any model or a success story, how your product or recycled yarn has been utilized here in Pakistan and how we are serving in any international brands for the purpose of garments and other products for the recycled materials, how you see that.
I think I covered a lot in my presentation, but I'll give you two examples. One is that once you produce a product that is competitive in terms of the quality versus the normal material, or virgin material, there is always a buyer, and buyers are now becoming more aware, and they want to buy those products which do not really compromise the quality as much, and the cost element has to be definitely a consideration. So as I was sharing, we are already approved by 2-3 global brands, and they are now specifying our product as to the customers to use because they understand we use the right materials. But a small example, I feel this is a lot economic driven than if I like to be more sustainable. So this Abru Foundation I was talking about, this organization was collecting bottles from household and companies just as a social thing where they were, taking it and people were giving it to them because they felt the cause is good. But what we did, we said that we are buying this bottle at X price from the market. We will pay you that X price. But if you start paying X minus 20 to where you're collecting the bottle, see the impact. And they have come back and they said, oh my God, the ton they could collect in 3 months was happening in 1 week. Because people do give to these organizations, but when there is an economic value attached to it, it just makes things much more faster. And similarly, what is happening in the circular fashion, in the industry where people are asking for recycle and they're willing to pay for these products, it's just going to, have a big impact on the industry upstream. But just be careful about this certification area, which is a little gray, so the customer should get what they're actually paying for.
I think Pakistan is on the road of sustainability, but there are two most recent terminologies. One is eco-anxiety, which is, as you understand anxiety, when we go and we understand the total challenges we have, we go under the anxiety or a stress term. And it's a very common cause people are getting towards doctors to get the advice for the purpose. And the second very important terminology is greenwashing, which is a very common practice. If you have seen a few scandals, people try to portray that they are very green in terms of sustainability and circularity, but there has to be a traceability criteria which is very much in line on the regulation in European Union and America, because they are working on the regulation to have a QR code which traces the back end of the product and the life cycle of the product. Now I will request my overseas friend, he is overseas, he couldn't come to the conference, Mr. Tobias, that what product line, because he is into a unique production machine, which is basically a spray machine for dyeing purpose, and which conserves water, or which stops one process where we consume a lot of water. So I will ask him what products you are working in and what type of equipment you are exporting to Pakistan.
So finally, you are correct that we are supplying revolutionary special RotaSpray systems to everywhere in the world, also for other industries. And based on some experience, we do a lot of moisturizing systems for sulfurizing, compacting, or exit on the standard frames. But also we do a lot of chemical finishing applications. Whatever, where you starting from a pure application of a softening agent up to water repellents, soil repellents, to fixation agents or PUs, acrylic, whatever is needed in the traditional finishing method. And we do it by spray.
Basically, Vico produces spray processing machines. So as you know, that water scarcity is one of the biggest issues, not only faced by the entire world, but specifically faced by Pakistan. The issue is that Pakistan is one of the most water scarce country in the world. 65% of our population does not have access to clean drinking water. And 20% of the pollution in the world, water pollution, is caused by textile dyeing. So this machinery, textile spray processing machine, addresses the problem of water consumption. So in the gone days, or in the conventional ways, we do dyeing either in long liquor ratios or short liquor ratios, or by pad dyeing, in which the fabric actually dips in a liquor. But in spray dyeing, you use minimum quantity of water. You not only reduce the water consumption, but you also reduce the energy consumption. Since the liquor ratio is very low, the drying cost of the fabric is also very low. So the process is emerging, and technology is very promising. And I think this is one of the futuristic technologies.
I think the research is involved, and the future coming years will be showing us more sustainable timelines so that we can get into day-to-day utilization of all the products, and everything is under the ecosystem we are targeting. I will request Mr. Axel, any company who are already serving in Pakistan and they're using your product line.
Yes, thank you. We have plenty of customers in Pakistan, and that's why I'm also here. We are running right now several trials with our Avitera dyes, reactive dyes, at customers in exhaust dyeing to reduce the water and energy amount, as I mentioned before, to achieve for them today already a much better sustainable footprint in their mills. And customers are adopting the system, even if it's sometimes from the chemical cost slightly higher. But when we look today at the cost of energy and of water and recycling of water, then we are much better for the future. And we have seen that also globally, that our dyes have picked up over the last 3-4 years dramatically, because a lot of customers are facing these issues: water cost, energy cost increase. And just over the last several months, when we see in Europe cost of gas increasing by 400-500%, this will change the whole picture. And we have to do that. On the other side, we can do that also for polyester cotton blends. We are having the Avitera fast process, where we also run here a much shorter time, a much better wash-off cycle time, without intermediate reduction clearing, to get good fastness and at the end, good quality. And the third example for it, we have, as I mentioned, the water repellent product, our Celana 3, which are products that we can apply by Waco system, can apply it by padding application, and they are made out of about 60% of renewable products. So this is one of the leading products in the industry, came out several years ago, and you can even have a hang tag with our partner Teflon to market that globally. So this is also quite often a request from brands to have this, and it fulfills all the wash durability that was mentioned before, 20 times washing with good sustainable product at the end. And if it goes to the waste, it is not as bad as the other ones, as the fluorocarbon product, they are not going into the wastewater. Even if we collect the wastewater, but also when you're doing the washing off at home in the home laundry, some of the product is coming off, and this is going to the wastewater. And this is what we see today on fluorocarbon products that are in the wastewater.
Excellent. Now I think the time is changing, and they were talking about greening as a subject. They want to induct it into the primary classes so that the next generation is going to be well aware. The way Rizwan was telling us, the idea of sorting plastic or swapping clothes, or a concept of a combined journey by sharing the car and to reduce the carbon footprint on the fossil fuel consumptions. So this is the idea. I will request Mr. Tanveer Hussain how he sees, because that's the future of education that we should inculcate in the minds of the students, that what actually the sustainability means. This is the part of the lifestyle, and this is a long-term thing. This idea is coming for, here to stay for the rest of our lives. So how you see the future in your university, how you inculcate the idea to your students?
So basically at the university, we are working on sustainability in different aspects. First of all, education. We have included modules in our curriculum for our undergraduate students as well as postgraduate students. Then in research, each and every thesis which we do in our university is connected to certain sustainable development goal. So in research, fully it is linked with sustainability. And then we offer testing and certification for the products which are claimed to be sustainable. And then we also do outreach. We do work in collaboration with the different organizations such as WWF as well as industry on sustainable new products. So there are different fronts on which we are as a university working.
Super initiative, I must say. Faiza, what do you think the future, the net zero? Because if we connect it with the Chamber of Commerces or a small retailers, do you think they are very important and integral part of the society? And is really the scaling of the idea to become net zero, because every private household or a small commercial or SME gets this concept and they get educated about the idea, how to implement and to become net zero. That is the future, and that will resolve a lot of resources from the government side and from the private sector, because they will do it on their own, and is very cost effective as well to go on solar, or to use or to clearly understand what type of materials or purchases habit to be utilized during their wholesale buying or industry buying.
The idea is that we are talking about big companies, right? Companies who have the awareness and the resources to invest in sustainability solutions. But I think a bigger part of the picture, and mostly very kind of ignored part, are the SMEs of the smaller sector, who, if you really look at it, are unmapped at the moment. But some of the estimates give a fair idea that they are a huge chunk in terms of the greenhouse gas contributions they're making to the inventory of Pakistan. So that needs to be addressed. It's a complex issue, but the one that would actually benefit even the SMEs if we try to tackle this problem. The reason, like you mentioned, is the economies that are involved. So, for example, if you talk about kind of installing solar panels as an alternative energy source for an SME, it might be a cost-intensive solution for one SME, but there are now solutions in the market that aggregate the demand from different companies, and then one solution can be created for a number of different companies operating on their own. So there are solutions there, and there are definitely cost benefits involved. One thing that we at NZP are doing, we are helping our member companies map Scope 3 emissions. So when we talk about Scope 3, a lot of Scope 3 emissions come from the sector that are really small or medium enterprises, even from the point of view of textile manufacturers. And these are literally the kind of, if you say it in like layman term, are karkhanas that are in a country. To make them explain what net zero is a big challenge, but I think we can break the problem down into different easy to do steps. The first is the mapping, which NCP has kind of, started doing. Like who are the players who are providing a larger textile sector with raw materials. So say for instance, thread, yarn, chemicals. So we start knowing that who is the entity that is actually part of the ecosystem, and then as a second step, we would be, explaining to them how they can start their journey towards net zero. I think one of the very important factor that I really should mention is this cannot be done in silo. Like for example, if one company from textile sector wants to map their scope 3 emission or companies upstream, it would be very difficult. But if we do it as a coalition, then it becomes very easier, because then you're able to identify suppliers who are common to all the big textile manufacturers, and then which are the which companies in the scope 3 domain are the ones that should be prioritized for mapping. That, and also I would also like to mention the support of Pakistan Textile Council that they have given us in terms of bringing together the textile sector, the 23 major companies, and we're also still engaging with them in terms of outreach of how more companies can sign up for NCP, including the larger companies and also the SMEs that are a very important part of the metrics. Thank you.
Do you see a shift on the consumer side in the purchasing habit, that they will be choosy to buy something which is sustainability is involved, which is involved with the sustainable methods of the production, and they will choose that product and they will prefer to buy that?
Of
or
course.
they will leave the product, or the price content will be affecting it? How you see that?
I think, as I shared in my presentation, the green consumerism, because consumer is becoming more and more alive to these kind of initiatives. And if you talk to your children, I talk to my children, they have started to ask these questions. Where did this come from? What was the source? Where did they get the energy from? And I think this new generation with the social media and so much information available, which was not the case in our time, I think it can just grow very, very quickly into consumer actually stopping to buy anything which is not coming from sustainable source.
Luckily, Pakistan is not among the top 20 emitters for the carbon footprint, but we are naturally a nation which is getting affected by our neighborhood, who are producing, who are more industrial, and the technical lines they are producing is emitting more CO2 and nitrogen emissions. So how you see globally there's going to be a shift, because some people they are producing in a bigger way, so they were talking about a carbon tax, putting some regulation, because if some nation, for example, I produce in Lahore and I emit a lot of CO2 and it is affecting the neighborhood, what you see, Mr. Axel, what you see, how you feel the future is going to be? It's a global phenomenon now, and we have one world and one earth, so we have to see globally the impact of carbon footprint.
The carbon footprint you talk about, okay, we have to reduce that drastically over the next several years. And it's a big discussion with all the brands. Brands are looking into that to reduce the carbon footprint. We have some alternatives, mainly because of heating is right now a big topic. Water saving is the topic. And you can save with spray application, with this kind of application. Heating for drying, that is a big carbon footprint producer. You have to look into new developments on processes. I think everybody is looking into that to reduce cycle times, where you need more electricity for the machines, to reduce that. And also, around the world, everybody wants to go into this direction. Solar is a good example, that all the plants need solar panels on top. We see here a request that will come around the world to be more sustainable in this aspect, but also on the other side, we have to produce that things. And then the question is, how is this recycling going on? So there is again a recycling process afterwards. What is happening there? We have to look into that. How can solar panels be recycled? How can wind turbines be recycled? Then that comes all to a calculation on a textile at the end of the day. And that's where we have to see how economical is this, where do we start, where do we end with this. It is a very long way to go, and I think we will need minimum 10 years till we have a final calculation on this one available, because it is so fragmented from all these standpoints that you have to have a real know-how about every single step, how this is going, how the recycling is done, what can we use as recycled material, how much is recycling costing us at the end of the day. That is also a big question.
I think to offset the carbon emissions is really important. And according to the UN study, we need in Pakistan 540 trees per person. And what we have right now is 5 trees only per person. So there is a lot of a big gap already there. And we can take it from there because this is the cheapest solution to offset that. And Bill Gates says in his study that for an American private household, for a year emission, they need 40 acres of forest. So if we do the forest in Pakistan, for example, in the areas like Balochistan and Sindh rural areas, so we can save it from the flooding and from the other impact of the environment, and we will get the clean oxygen. So I will say thank you to all participants. And once again, we love sustainability.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.